Hi. This is the first of the videos that I decided to do. I was bored, and I put on Facebook I was bored, and somebody said, "Well, why don't you show us how you do all your cooking?" So that's what I think I'll probably do through lockdown. So it gives people something to do. This is quite a simple dish to start with. It's the pilau rice, and people are always asking me, how do you get your pilau rice to look like that? You've seen it in the restaurants where it's all different colours, and there's no real mystery to it. It's getting it to taste right and getting it to look right. And the first thing you need to have is a decent rice. And the rice we're using here this is a long grain rice. You can use basmati. Most people do use basmati. Tilda is good. Uncle Benny's good. You need something that's not going to fall to pieces. But the one thing that's really, really important that you must do with your rice is you must wash it. And if you don't wash it, the starch that's in the rice will stick together, and you'll end up with a real gluey mess. And it doesn't work. It's just horrible. So what I tend to do is I tend to go in here and do it about 6 times. I'll give you an indication of how bad the starch is in rice. If you don't wash it, all of this starch will form a very thick gravy, and it also is a breeding ground for bacteria. So if you leave the rice and this starch is still in it, it won't keep very well. The bacteria's got something to eat, so it's always important that we wash the rice as many times as you possibly can and try and get all of this sort of milky water out. I mean, you don't need to use hot water, you don't need to use cold water. There's no rule to what you need to use. It is important though that you try and get it as clear as you possibly can. You'll never get it totally clear. I'm going to give this about 4 washes because there's not too much rice in here. Okay, so the amount of starch that's come out of there will make it now a nice and fluffy rice. Now there's 2 ways of cooking rice. One method is called submersion, when you just submerge the rice in a torrent of water and let it crack on. And the other one is absorption, and that's when you measure the amount of water against the amount of rice that you're using. I never measure anything. I hate measuring. It doesn't work for me. I'm not a big advocate of it. As a consequence, everything that I'm going to show you in the videos that we do, nothing is going to be measured. You'll be pleased to know. It's all experience, I think, more than anything. So what I've done is I've put quite a bit of water in there, so that it won't, because obviously the rice will probably double in size anyway. And what I've done is I've put quite a bit of water in there. Now what we need to do is we need to not just make the rice look nice, we need to make it taste and smell nice. So what we're using is some of these ingredients here. These are the ingredients that we're using today. So we've got the rice, we've got, this is a cinnamon stick. Cinnamon stick, incidentally, isn't just from one tree. There's about 7 different trees that produce cinnamon sticks, and they're all over the world. But these are really fragrant, and what I do with these is I just crack them open and throw them in, and they'll break into little shards, and you just throw them into the water, and they just live happily in the water there. You will have to fish them out eventually because they're not very nice. But they do give off a great taste and flavour. Some people don't put salt in their rice, and I never understand that at all, because to salt something beforehand means that all the ingredient will go straight into the rice, as opposed to adding it afterwards, which never really works. We've got some black pepper. You can use freshly ground, it doesn't make any difference, or you can just buy this ready ground stuff. Doesn't make any difference at all. The next thing is cardamom pods. Now these are green cardamom pods. Green cardamom pods are, you get different colours, black cardamom and green cardamom. You can, if you want to, smash them which will release the seeds that are inside of them. Now these seeds are very edible, no problem at all, but the casing isn't very nice. The casing's not very edible. So for me, I don't really need to smash them open. They're quite, they infuse a lot of flavour, they give off a great scent, and there they go. In they go. So they're in as well. The next thing is clove. Cloves actually are buds. They're buds off a tree. These are from an Indonesia tree, and they're just the buds. And what they do is they pick them off and dry them, and we know them as cloves. And of course, you get clove oil and various other sort of medical things. But cloves themselves are horrible if you bite into them. They're not very nice. They're very, very powerful tasting, but they give off a wonderful flavour, a wonderful smell, and they go in as well. Okay. One last thing that we're putting in. These are bay leaves. Now these are grown all over the world, and these ones are actually grown in Shropshire because they're out of my garden. And what I do with these is crunch them up, and that releases the oil because it cracks them. They're not dry; these are straight off the tree. You can get them dried, and I just throw them in. Okay, and everything now is in that we need. That's all that we need for the fragrance, for the taste, and for the actual aroma. And what we do is we let that cook, and we test the rice until the rice is more than al dente. You don't want it al dente. You want it to cook thoroughly, but you don't want it to go mushy. So you need to keep an eye on it. So probably 10 minutes. Try a little bit of rice, and it's always a good taste test. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that sort of boil down. And we'll come back to see it in about 10 minutes time.